Some kids get really into horses or dragons, but me? Griffins. I see a griffin flying around, full stop, staring, probably crying a little. Beautiful creatures.
Incredible. Okay, we won't kill them. Let's go find something else to kill. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ESO Vault. I'm here with new companion Tanlorin and a new heavy attack Dragonknight build. You know, I thought a vacation in Somerset was a good idea, but it's been completely disrupted by strange occurrences and monsters coming out of the ocean. I can't seem to catch a break, even in a fantasy world. Oh well, let's get back to today's build. I've been using this character to level Zirithvar and Tanlorin, so it's seen plenty of playtime and I'm confident that the build works well. I looked back through my videos and it doesn't look like I've done a heavy attack Dragonknight before. That may be because I'm pretty sure this video won't be one of the more popular ones. Dragonknight videos just don't seem to get that many views. So if you do happen to watch this and you enjoy it, be sure to put a like on it to help me out with the algorithm. This build is designed to be a damage dealer in the 4-player dungeons. It can be adapted for other content, but I'll leave that stuff up to you guys. This isn't a meta build. If you're looking for the absolute maximum damage you can do to a stationary trials dummy that doesn't fight back, I'm afraid this isn't it. But if you want a build that the average player can easily run and will make it through most of the content in the game, then stick around for a while.
Hey! I'm all ears.
This character is an Imperial, and that's a holdover from his tanking days. Unfortunately, Imperials really don't have any good bonuses for damage dealers. If you're rolling a new character, I'll put up the tier list for Magicka DPS in case you want a race that actually does have some decent bonuses. If you already have a race in mind that you're dying to play, don't let this list change your mind. Play what you want to play. This is a fantasy role-playing game. Don't let small things that don't matter get in the way of your vision for your character. Skills and how you use them are what matter the most, and that's the part of these videos that I devote the most time to. My preferred food for this setup is Bewitched Sugar Skulls, and that boosts all 3 of my stats. For the demo fight though, I used a single stat food that buffs just Magicka. I'm running the Thief Mundus Stone here for extra critical chance. You can see here that I have all 64 points in Magicka. I wind up with 27,000 points of health and 29,000 points of Magicka, and high health is one of the strengths of a heavy attack build. I'm going to skip the recovery numbers because it's pretty hard to run out of resources, which is another strength of this type of build. Spell damage is at 4,200 and spell crit is at 44%, and those are typical for an Oakensoul setup. Penetration is sitting at 5,300 on the character sheet, and that goes up in combat. I almost always have a skill that gives me major breach. Both physical and spell resistances are decent, but by no means tanky. I still have to avoid being stupid in combat. And crit resistance is a PvP thing, so that finishes the character sheet.
I used to read Marimur stories that made them out to be swashbuckling adventurers. Even dreamed about sailing the seas like them. Never meet your idols. I've seen the harm they can cause firsthand. No thank you.
Yeah, they're not exactly friendly. Let's get some payback for the people of Sunhold. I want to check my skills first though. So like I said, this is a heavy attack build, and of course that means no light attack weaving. Instead, I'm going to weave in skills between heavy attacks. I do that by pressing a skill button while I'm holding heavy attack, and when that heavy attack is finished, the skill will fire off automatically. I try not to let go of that heavy attack button. I just keep queuing skills, one for each heavy attack. The computer will handle the timing. Before I go into my first heavy attack though, I'm going to use the new scribe skill, Fiery Contingency. My custom version of Oakensouls Contingency does fire damage over time, and inflicts enemies with minor vulnerability. Now Oakensouls Contingency has a delayed effect. It won't kick in until I use my next skill, and the next skill I use is Blockade of Storms. Blockade of Storms is important in heavy attack builds because it will proc off balance. Off balance causes heavy attacks to do 70% more damage. For this to work, the lightning staff has to have a shock damage glyph on it. This is the traditional method of setting enemies off balance in heavy attack builds. I'll use one more skill before I start my heavy attacks. I use the Earth and Heart skill, Eruption. This skill does flame damage over time and gives me the Minor Brutality buff because of the Mountain's Blessing passive. Minor Brutality is unique to the Dragonknight. This increases my weapon damage by 10%. I'm going to bring this up again in the gear section because this skill influenced my gear choice. Alright, so I've used 3 skills to start the fight, and now is when I start in with my heavy attacks. Toward the end of that first heavy attack, I queue up another skill, and that's Fiery Soul. I'm using the fire versions of my scribe skills because Dragonknights have a bonus to fire damage. Fiery Soul was my custom version of the Wield Soul skill from the Soul Magic skill line. This does flame damage over time, and debuffs my target with Major Breach. Major Breach reduces the target's armor by 5,000 points. Now anytime I don't have another skill I need to cast, I'm going to use Fiery Soul. The nice thing about this as a spammable is that when I have to cast another skill, the damage over time portion of this will keep ticking. Now if you don't want to use this scribe skill here, just drop in Noxious Breath. Believe it or not, that's a solid spammable that also applies Major Breach to the target. Fiery Breath also hits multiple targets, but they say single target damage is king, and Fiery Soul surpassed Noxious Breath in single target damage. So now you've seen all the skills except 2, and my rotation is simply to queue up my dots when they're about to expire and fill in the gaps with Fiery Soul. All the time I'm doing that, I try to keep that heavy attack button held down. The heavy attacks are what does the majority of the damage. My last 2 skills are my heal, Coagulating Blood, and the ultimate, Standard of Might. If I know I'm going to be in a highly mobile fight, I can consider swapping the standard for something like Dawnbreaker. That will serve me better in mobile fights. Alright, you've seen the skills, so let's put them into action with a quick demo. Alright, you son of a biscuit. So the build did 46,000 points of damage per second in this simple boss fight, and it'll do 72,000 on a Trials demo for those of you that want to know that stuff. If you want to drop Coagulating Blood and put Banner Bearer in that slot, you can push that higher. I did, and it worked out pretty well. This is how I set that up. I chose the Flame Damage Focus script, which increases damage over time. For the signature script, I used Sage's Remedy, which gives me constant healing over time, and I chose the Affix script that gives me minor heroism. With healing over time and a Tri-Stat Potion in my back pocket, this works well. But in more difficult content, this only works if the group has a healer that's on the ball. Okay, let's go ahead and move on.
Reap Hammer! Destroy these fools!
We've got this.
I am the knight, and the knight cannot die.
Something on your mind, friend?
If you say, "We got this," try not to go down in the first 5 seconds. Oh, hey guys, I'm glad you're still here because I want to get this build wrapped up by looking at the gear. And I have to say, I did make a gear change from what I usually run in heavy attack builds. My first 5-piece set is the same though. There's no getting around the Sergeant's Mail set. It's a must-have for heavy attack builds. This set comes from Wayrest Sewers, and while you're in there, go ahead and get the Slime Crawl Monster Helm because you need that too. I have a Sergeant's Mail staff and the precise trait with a shock glyph, and this is the exact setup you need for the build to work. I mentioned in the skills section that this works with Wall of Elements to proc off balance, and without off balance I don't have a heavy attack build. Hopefully you new guys are leveling your crafting so you can change traits at a transmute station. I'd hate to see you have to try and farm the right trait. My second set I'm wearing is the new one. Well, it's not new. I just don't usually wear it because it's more of a solo set. I'm wearing the 5-piece Noble Duelist Silk set, and you guys that always nag me about this set should be happy now. I said in a comment at one point that I would wear this set if I was running a heavy attack Dragonknight, and well, here we are. And that's because of the Dragonknight's unique buff to weapon damage, so I wanted to lean into the extra weapon damage that Noble Duelist provides. My beef with Noble Duelist is that it's light armor. That gives me a lot of penetration, which is great for solo work, not so great in groups. Even on a Dragonknight, the Stormmaster set is close enough in damage that in the majority of group content it's going to pull even with or outperform Noble Duelist. But I went ahead and used it here anyway because I know a lot of you guys are fans of this set. I will add that in short fights, Noble Duelist is less RNG sensitive than Stormmaster, and that's because if Stormmaster doesn't crit in the first heavy attack or two, that will throw the numbers off. I have to point out one pitfall of Noble Duelist though, and that's that I have to stay close to my enemy for it to proc. If being close to bosses makes you squeamish, consider running Stormmaster instead. There's one more item in this build, and of course that's the Oakensoul ring. This mythic item gives me a long list of buffs which includes Empower. Empower increases the damage on my heavy attacks by 70%. I want to point out that the Oakensoul ring also gives me Minor Slayer, which is a 5% increase to damage. Normally I can only get that buff by running Trials gear. That and the other buffs Oakensoul gives me makes doing a heavy attack build without this ring pretty difficult. Alright, that covers the gear. My jewelry is in the Bloodthirsty trait and has weapon and spell damage and chance. I have 5 light body pieces, 1 medium and 1 heavy. They're all divines with magicka glyphs. Looking at the champion points, the blue ones are Weapons Expert, Fighting Finesse, Wrathful Strikes, and Deadly Aim. I want to point out that I took Bloody Renewal down in the red points because there's no way I can run out of magicka here. But I can easily run out of stamina in certain situations, so I want to recover stamina with my kills. And that's it for the build. Well, Tanlorin, how are we doing so far?
Well, most of the stories I tell at taverns are about our adventures now, so I say we're doing pretty good.
Okay, great. Well guys, that's it for today's Heavy Attack Dragonknight build. I'm Centurion and you've been watching ESO Vault. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to crush that like button. If you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. The end of the video has the usual fashion show followed by a fight. Thanks for watching, have a great day and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.
Do you ever pretend you're a beaver?
No, I never pretend I'm a beaver. Not even once.